Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the brand new, refreshed Battlefield show full of sandbags and crates everywhere. I'm your host, JulianJanganoo, and I'm here with my co-host, GraViTyXIII, and we'll be taking a detailed look at all the upcoming Battlefield news around the Battlefield world. But before we get to the topics of discussion today, with our special guest, Catalyst HD, I wanted to just touch upon the purpose of the Battlefield show and what to expect. The purpose of the Battlefield show is to pretty much bring the community together, to get a whole bunch of different events, guests, special guests, talk about a whole bunch of different types of topics in the Battlefield universe, the future of Battlefield coming on up, and it's just it's more of a deep dive of things you want to hear. There's a lot of topics out there, and the most popular topics are usually the ones we'll be talking about. So this is the place to be for talking about 2042 and all future Battlefield content coming up in the seasons that we have left, and also in future Battlefields, because they are going to create new Battlefield games. So, what to expect for the Battlefield show? First thing, again, like I said, deep dive conversations into the Battlefield topics, the most recent ones. We're going to have a lot of great guests on the show, just like Catalyst is here with us. We're also going to feature a whole bunch of Battlefield community events and tournaments, not only in 2042, but across the entire franchise as well. We'll also have news on like patches and different updates that are coming along as 2042 is coming along. We also may feature a few community content creations, either on Twitter, on Reddit, or any other space where people create their content, like YouTube, stuff like that. We may feature a few of those here on our program. If you wish to share any of your highlights and things like that, you can always email us at the Battlefield Show Podcast Gmail, which is bfshowpodcast@gmail.com. is where you can send in your ideas, your content creations, and we may feature it on the show. Okay? On tonight's program, we are joined by Catalyst HD. A great friend of ours. We've been playing Battlefield together for a long time. He's been on my previous episodes of the older version of the Battlefield show, and we discussed many things. But tonight, we're going to cover three main topics. Number one, the quality control in Season 2. Is it good? Is it bad? We'll go through everything, including the guns, the nerfs, the UI issues, persistent lobby issues, one of the first things we'll be talking about. The new specialists, Crawford, we'll be talking all about the quality of Season 2. The next thing we're going to talk about is the class system. Is there an issue? Is it going to change how people play fundamentally? Find out. Also, chaos. The community embracing chaos modes, such as Squid G's Rush, which it features 128 players playing the small game mode Rush, and how crazy it could be, such as in older Battlefield titles like Operation Metro and Operation Locker. Those modes are just the grind modes, right? Even in BF5 we saw stuff like that. So we'll be talking about whether this is a good idea or not. Is embracing 128 players chaos kind of like a mistake? Is it something we should focus on? We'll be covering all that here on the Battlefield show. Welcome back, everybody. First topic of the discussion is the Season 2 content and its quality. Oh boy, there's a lot of stuff going wrong with the new guns, the attachments, the all of a sudden like just crazy nerfs out of nowhere, UI glitches, and also persistent lobbies has also been a very, very annoying for me personally. I don't know about you guys, but let's start with persistent lobbies. I really want to get this off my chest right now. They have added persistent lobbies to All Out Warfare, all right? Which is kind of similar to what they do in Portal. So that's interesting. But why they did this is because of feedback from the community saying they wanted to play both sides of Rush, Attacker and Defender, and both sides of Breakthrough, Attacker and Defender. Okay, so you get the full experience of the map. But here's the thing that I think immediately jumps off the page is I'm sick and tired of playing the same map over and over and over again. This makes it even doubly worse. So what do you guys think? Because every time I load up, right, and I play the match, great, full server, everything, and then the persistent lobby kicks in so I can play the other side, like the defending side. And I load in, and no one's there. It's completely empty, and I have to exit out and then do it all over again. I can never find a server that's not going into persistent mode. What are you guys' thoughts? Am I the only one annoyed here, or is it everyone's affected by this? Go ahead, Gravity, or...
I've had very limited experience or limited issues with this so far because I haven't really played like Rush a lot. Or even Breakthrough. I think I have had the issue where it just, you get to the end screen where it starts giving you your battle pass stuff, and then it just kicks you into the next match without even noticing, and it doesn't bring your party along either, which is kind of hilarious. So
yes,
complete oversight there. Yeah, I completely agree that it's just kind of a mess that nobody really wanted to play the same map twice. We really just wanted to load into the next map with the same group of people on the opposite team and just kind of swap the roles around. This is just another complete misunderstanding of what the community actually wants, and just another problem of, again, persistent servers and just rotating the teams. That's all you got to do. It's not the most complicated thing.
Yeah, I kind of had the thought. I kind of had the thought, like, why are we making this change to begin with? I mean, the first couple of experiences that I had with this, I think I was streaming and I read chat or whatever for a solid minute. I'm like, oh, I've loaded into the next game, but on defense, and everybody is so conditioned at this point to understand that, okay, once you leave the game, to just cut down on the 2.5 minute wait time that we normally have to go through to even get into the next lobby. Everybody leaves the lobby right away to re-queue and go into the next server. So the I don't know who was asking for this, but apparently they aren't waiting around for the second round of the game because everybody that was in the previous lobby moves on and has already been there. So it turns into a dead lobby and you end up going back to the main menu anyways. Now, if this was a change for like Rush and Rush by itself, now that I understand, because unlike Breakthrough, Rush is a 10 to 15 minute game mode at its longest, not a 25 to 30 minute game mode like Breakthrough. So I would understand for the folks that continue to play Rush that they would want to be able to play both sides back to back because it's a shorter game. But I don't know about you, after a 25-minute of bashing my head against the door trying to shove my team into a container area for 35 minutes, like I don't necessarily want to play that again. So for me, it's a lateral change. It's an unnecessary change, and I can understand if it was made for just Rush, but for Breakthrough, it makes no sense. I don't really know who was asking for it, and it kind of defeats the purpose, like I said, because everybody ends up leaving the lobby anyways because it takes so damn long to go between matches.
And you know how you solve know how you solve the problem in the first place without even doing any of that? Just add the team switch button. That's it.
Yeah.
Switch teams.
Ooh, that's
it.
That's toxic, though.
That's it.
Hey.
Bring it back.
I don't want to hear this toxicity out of your mouth. The dice, but they're watching this.
Do you know they
have the policy?
4 years, that's Julian. Right. 4 years it's been since we had a team swap button. Swap teams, isn't that?
That's insane.
Yeah.
Why do you think there's no all chat? You toxic players. You see, this is why I'm so against this. No, but anyway, this is compounded by not having a server browser, at least as an option, so people can say, like, well, I don't want to play this current rotation because I just played this godforsaken map called Hourglass, and I'm not going to waste another hour playing both sides of Hourglass or trying to, server queue up so I can get them the other side or attacking side. It's a mess. It's one of the biggest messes of Season 2, and I feel like a lot of people that love Breakthrough and Rush are experiencing this, and I can't stand Conquest right now because I don't enjoy the 128 player Conquest modes. It's just not working for me, right? Maybe with the refresh stuff, but that'll be a different discussion. Let's get into the guns. There's a Reddit post, which maybe we can show here, that shows a whole bunch of issues with the weapons. Let me see if I could just bring it up here.
Yeah, do you have it for me,
real
Julian?
quick. Yeah, I have it here. I can just get this going.
Thank you.
So there's that, and that's not even everything, too. The AM40 apparently is, and not apparently, is confirmed by a community manager that the headshot multiplier is incorrect. It is the older headshot multiplier for the SMGs. And remember, this is not an SMG. This is an assault rifle and the assault rifle class. But it's kind of like a hybrid. But they are aware that this should not have the new or the old headshot multipliers for the assault rifle. So it's not working as intended. So that's busted. Also, the advances, which is a gun a lot of people haven't unlocked yet. It's at like Portal. Not Portal. It's at rank 34 for the Battle Pass. So that's a lot because if you're playing every day and you got through all the weekly missions, it only gets you so far. So it's kind of like a long grind to 34. But next week, people start getting the 34 real quick with those the battle point push from the weekly missions. They give a lot of points out, so you get there in no time next week if you've been playing. But also, that weapon has some headshot multiplier issues from the SMGs. Like, what the heck? This user also mentioned the P51 has a recoil issue with the screen shake, even though people have turned down screen shake all the way as far as they can go. It is more pronounced now for some reason. The M16 has incorrect headshot multipliers. It also, it doesn't do the correct damage. The LVG attachment, the underbarrel grenade launcher, has a lot of issues with it. It is insanely accurate. It does a lot of splash damage. And you can also, if you use, I believe, Angel, you can refill up to 6 grenades with the LVG and start massacring everybody because the Irish Sentinels don't stop them anymore. Even with the new, I think grenades on the new Ram also go past the Irish Sentinel. So 2 oversights right there in a row. But the user also said here that the M60 is the only one that doesn't seem to be affected by this. But Catalyst, tell me, what is wrong with the M60?
I'm pretty sure that has a damage problem too, doesn't it? The headshot multiplier, something along those lines.
It felt
I
like
feel
it.
like it does too. Yeah, I feel like it just shoots really slow. I don't know.
Well, the shooting slow it's an M60. It should shoot slow,
It's an
but
M60,
it should hit
but
hard. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. So it's more of like a damage thing than rate of fire thing.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just
Well,
so used to these.
Doesn't it say on the Reddit post that the M60 was also confirmed bug towards the bottom there?
Let me see. Where? Oh,
No, at the
user?
original poster. Yeah, it says edit. Turns out I was wrong. The M60 is bugged as well. Oh, well, they don't go into specifics, but
I see.
I would not be surprised if there is something wrong with the damage or the headshot multiplier, because it does not feel like it shoots straight.
Oh, then there's the firing delay on the M60 and the M16. Oh my god, that was driving me crazy the other day. You swap from pistol to M16, and you literally can't shoot for like 2 full seconds.
There's something with the reload too on the M16. Are we still talking about the M60 or the M16?
Oh, we can do either one at this point.
Well, the M16 has some really bad input delay too. Feels like, or some type of delay.
Yeah,
Does not
maybe
feel
they're both
good.
related. You mean after swapping?
Yeah, swapping or
swapping,
reloading,
yeah.
or reloading. I think. Yeah.
Really? I have noticed that more pronouncedly on the M60 with the delay, and I lose like every firefight on Stranded using the M60, like 1-on-1. If we see each other at the same time, I always lose, like almost every time. I have to catch them off guard to start popping off. But that just goes to show the quality of Season 2, despite the map being kind of like what the community wanted in terms of breakthrough being with no vehicles at all, and all this infantry focused gameplay is exactly what was missing from all the vanilla maps. Of course, we got a little taste of that more in the exposure map, in the mountains and stuff, and that hallway.
Sort of. I mean, the first month of that map was Superhind Farm, if you remember that. I mean,
And
you
Liz
couldn't
rocket
get past the
spamming.
first sector.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So kind of, but it got there, I guess.
A little taste.
Yeah. I think this just all boils down to the fact that the quality control on any of this content is just incredibly poor. The fact that they spent 3 months, 2 months, 3 months, whatever, on at least 2 or 3, 4 or 5 weapons, and half of them, more than half of them, are bugged and completely useless. It's just, it's embarrassing. It really is. And now they want...
Yeah, it's a situation in which it's like, really, you have the entire studio over there working on this. This is the best that you can produce. It's like that. It contradicts directly with what they're telling us about. No, we're dedicated. We're working 24/7 a day on making sure that this game is running correctly. And stuff like this happens where this development team just continuously shoots itself in the foot, and it is the hardest thing in the world to believe that there is a dedicated group of people working on content for the game and also bug fixing it. I know that they'll say, well, we already know that the new Battlefield game is in development. I know that they'll say, well, we're dedicated to fixing this game, and that is the biggest pile of horse shit are we allowed to curse on the show, right, Julian?
Absolutely.
It's a family show, but
it's a family show. Okay, well then that's my one expletive.
You get 2 more
F
F-bombs, okay? That's it.
I get 2 more? Okay.
So you can explain to the children.
I'll pick my moments. But yeah, it's a pile of hogwash. That they're saying that they have a whole bunch of people working on this game because it just doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, dude, overnight, right? Like an overnight vote, dude. This shit came out of nowhere. Jisoo Pike, the wall hack lady herself, got nerfed into oblivion, and instead of which is great. I'm just like, well, wait a second. Well, what about all these can you do that without a client patch? Can you change the attachments?
Oh yeah, they can.
They do that? Have they done that?
Yeah, they did this stuff with Dozer's shield, like right off the bat when they like completely removed the ability to use the shield, and then they completely removed the ability to use the specialist, like within days of the game launching.
And then did they need a really client patch to fix it though?
Yeah, well, it was fixed in like the first patch, which came out like a month later. Like,
so it's gonna be okay. So they can only remove and like vault things, but can't vault change and then without a patch.
This is something that frustrates me so much about the Battlefield series right now. Right, we constantly are told we don't have the ability. There's no capability. We don't have we can't develop all this stuff to fix in the game, and yet they developed, starting with at least BF5, all this back-end infrastructure to either gather data on the maps, gather data on the players and what players are using, shut things off if they need to, shut off certain maps, shut off certain guns, and then they made it even worse in 2042, where they improved on it or whatever. And this is an excuse not to patch or hotfix things. They simply turn it off and say, well, you can't use that anymore until we fix it, and that could be up to a month or 2 later. And this is just it's a ridiculous system of going about game development.
It's a good idea in theory, in my opinion, but this is just the wrong studio.
Yeah,
it just does not feel like I feel
And the
like if
wrong
this were
engine too. The wrong
on the
engine.
wrong engine as well, it feels. I feel like if this were a different game that we were talking about, say there was something busted in Elden Ring, like there was a completely unusable sword or whatever, and this was implemented, I think the reception would be, yeah, okay, you have the ability to shut off that weapon. I mean, obviously, I don't think Elden Ring would be a good example, but that's the first one that popped in my head of a recent really good video game. Um, it's not the right engine. It's not the right studio. They can't really seem to get anything right in that regard.
Yeah. So Pike's issue is, well, it got buffed before season 2 came out, and we're like, you're releasing a CQC map coming up. Was that on the bullet point list on your whiteboard before you decided to do this? Like, it was such a big oversight. It was like, okay, I get why you buffed her, right? She was very underutilized. On your program or your data was saying people weren't using her because her shit wasn't strong enough, so they went with somebody else, right? So they're trying to nerf and buff so everybody can be in line, just like Liz. When Liz she was like, oh, mega powerful and everyone's shooting rockets and everything, but then she settled down right where they wanted her to be. But it didn't work out for Pike over, the first season. So they decided to buff her. And pure chaos ensued in the new map, Stranded, where there's nothing but Pikes everywhere, spamming your location revealed. And then people just got desensitized to that and just sort of like, oh man, my KD went down. I wonder why. It was just a disaster. So out of nowhere, they nerfed her. So now it's kind of like they say a snapshot. Am I saying that right? A snapshot of like where people were for a second, kind of like taking a picture or something. And the scanning distance is now the radius is now shorter by a little bit. Do you guys notice Pikes running around as much?
Yeah. No, yeah, I still see Pikes
Really?
running around because I think it's one of those like delayed effect things. I there you got to think about how many players are actually like us that are invested in what's going on in the game and understand like what's going on in the patch notes and everything. There's probably a fair number of pipe players that don't even know that a change has been made.
True, 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 true.
I think that just generally speaking, anytime you're going to have any type of wall hack specialist, that specialist is going to be strong. And I don't know why they buffed Pate to begin with. I thought that the balancing trick that they did where she is spotted on the map when she's using the ability, I thought that kept her in check, because I know every single one of us, when we first saw that this specialist was going to be able to see people through walls, we were like, oh no, this is going to be so horrendously game breaking. And the past 2 months of the game, or 2 weeks of the game since the new season has come, is exactly what we thought it was going to be like. I don't understand why they buffed her. Good riddance to getting it nerfed into the ground. I still think that the ability as it is still strong. I don't think that Pake is going to fall out of the meta now that they've kind of it's almost kind of like getting pushed onto stage. You kind of don't know what to do with yourself. You just kind of stand there and awkwardly just play to the crowd or whatever. I feel like that's what they've done with Pake. They've pushed Pake onto the stage, and now she's got a whole bunch of attention, and I think she's going to stay in the meta for a while.
What do you think, Grav?
I completely agree with Catalyst on this. First off, I mean, like he said, immediately when she was first announced, we're like, you can't put a wall cat character in an FPS game. She's going to be completely overpowered. And then when it came out, when it launched, we're like, okay, maybe this isn't so bad. And then they put the nerf in there with, okay, maybe she's spotted on the minimap. And that was actually a pretty decent counter. And yet at the same time, like, I completely agree that as these specialists get released or whatever, it's inherently just going to be a commonplace thing that whatever they introduce, it's either going to be overpowered or it's going to be fine, but there's going to be tweaking to it, right? And it's completely normal in that respect. And so nerfing her because you release this map that's completely up her alley is fair game, and I completely agree with the nerf. On the flip side, I just blame all of this chaos on the specialist system themselves. You wouldn't have to nerf and change and tweak all of these different abilities and characters if you didn't have this system in the first place. And every time you release a map, God knows you could release a remake of Metro and suddenly it'd be like, oh, I guess we got to nerf Dozer again just because the shield's too strong and a bunch of like, it's an example. It's not going to happen, but if you design a level based on a certain character's strengths, then that character needs to be nerfed because of that level design. And you wouldn't have this without all these abilities and specialists.
They murdered Sundance, man. They murdered Sundance. I loved playing that specialist, but everybody started flying around like bats out of hell and spamming scatter grenades on exposure, and now she's almost completely unusable. They completely gored the living hell out of her kit. Took away EMPs, they took away the amount of grenades. Now, I'm not saying that scatter grenades didn't deserve to be nerfed, but I think Gravity makes a really good point, and it's something that I personally have been wanting to talk about for a long time, and I'm gonna make my own video on exactly why or why not specialists could ever work in the game. But it all boils down to this: is that Battlefield is too large of a game in order to be able to correctly balance these types of specialists in a game. It's one thing if it's Overwatch and it's 6v6. The nuances of balancing and counterbalancing are a little bit more controllable. But when you have 64 players in which there's an uncapped amount of players running on the map, that's when it becomes a really big issue. And obviously, you see it in past Battlefields. Like the medic rush is a real thing. Like that is a real problem. Grenade spam is a problem in past games, and that is product of the class system, which is now turned into the specialist system. It's just, I think players are now kind of realizing, oh yeah, there's kind of a lot of McKay's running around now because McKay is such a really good specialist, and it's something that was a problem in older games, and I think the class 6. Let me put it to you this way: reverting back to the old class system is not going to fix this. It's purely a specialist problem, and that is the conclusion that I think more and more people are coming to the longer the game is out.
And the longer time you go with specialists, and the amount of times you have to fix specialists, the less amount of time you are spending fixing actual problems like vehicle balance or anything like that, and adding problems, adding vehicles to the game or fixing those mechanics.
Well, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the chaos that's ensuing, and people are embracing those modes. And we'll come back to the class system that they're going to introduce in Season 3. But let's move on to the next topic. Let us know what you think in the comment section below. You can also go watch Catalyst's videos on his website, and we'll put that on there on the screen for you. Okay, let's move on to the next topic, and that is chaos. Speaking of chaos, the 128 players feature for 2042 has become it has evolved quite oddly in this game, so much so to where they had to remove it from breakthrough. There's no 128 breakthrough, and people are losing their minds over it. I see at least 1 or 2 Reddit posts a day talking about bring back 128 player mode. We want our chaos. And it seems like the community is now embracing chaos and is being encouraged to play chaos modes that have no end and that have no play style to it, such as Squid G's featured mode on Portal, which is 64v64 Rush, which is not what it's designed for, but what they intend is pure and utter chaos for the funsies. Now, this is a featured for multiple weeks, and this spawns from what we saw in BF3 for like Metro. The way it was designed was very close quarters. People loved like healing people, resupply, ammo, medic crates everywhere, throwing grenades all the time. People just seemed to like that style of play. And then they ended up doing the CQC DLC. What was that called again? Anybody?
Close quarters. I think.
Just it's close quarters.
This is called close quarters, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
4 maps that are all close quarters. One was on like a rooftop of a goddamn skyscraper, which is also kind of weird. Like the whole map was just there. Zeba Tower, right? I think that was called.
Yep, that's it.
And it just it just kept going. Like the chaos just kept going. And then Battlefield 4 had its Metro, which is Lockers, Operation Locker, I think it was called. And that was on a snowy hill, same kind of thing. It's a linear format, and you got those choke points above and below this time, and people just going nuts. So now we're seeing that a lot in portal modes, and now with the new map, people are embracing the chaos. I don't think, and this is my take real quick, this is not Battlefield. Okay, this is just silly shit that people do on the side, especially in previous games where you can modify certain servers or have server rules. Like that's someone's private thing to do, right? But now with the introduction of 128 players as an actual feature people can utilize in the Battlefield game for the first time ever, it's doubly crazy. Like it's nuts. So I just want to get your thoughts, Catalyst. Is this the right direction to go? Is this something we should be encouraging, or DICE should be encouraging for this chaos modes?
It's a multi-pronged issue, Julian. I think part of the problem is that once people, I think the knee-jerk reaction was, wow, 128 players does not feel good. Then the second knee-jerk reaction was, wow, it does not feel better on 64 players, because then it kind of exposes how bad and how big the maps are. And
Right.
I think the general coming to light moment is that, okay, well, if these maps were designed for 128 players, it might as well play for 128 players, because running around on a marathon on a map for 64 players, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I think Exodus Conquest is the best playlist in the game. That's the one that I enjoy the most because I get to play really good maps,
Yep.
like Valparaiso and Noshar. And you really feel that size when you switch to one of the 2042 maps that are mixed in. It's like, God damn, I really don't want to play this. I do not want to run across the map. So I think it's a multi-pronged issue, and people are saying, okay, well, maybe 64 players wasn't exactly the way to handle this specific problem with Battlefield 2042. The other part of it is that whatever it is about meat grinder maps, there's always been an affinity by the battlefield community to enjoy that, and you see that in Metro and Lockers. And I think that sentiment is being put a little bit over the top because there's just so many more players. Chaos can work in Battlefield, but I think that in this case it's too much unhinged chaos to the point where it's not fun. So that's kind of why I roll my eyes when people are embracing the chaos, because uh, I think Battlefield is at its best when it's controlled chaos, and you can control the map around you. You know, it's readable, it's enjoyable, it's hectic, but it's not in your face all the time. So when there's these modes like the Squid G mode, where it's 120 players in a game mode that should never be 128 players, it just I don't know. It almost feels like that's a in a lot of ways it feels like that's a weird cult side of the community, kind of like the all the 1000% damage milsim servers that you see in Portal. But like I'm saying, it's a multi-pronged issue. I think it's people embracing the chaos because that's the way that this game plays better, but it's also I think a little bit too much of an admiration for the meat grinder mentality.
Yeah, I
That
mean,
people tend to like.
look at this image. This is like someone's complaining about I forget what the context of this image was, but this just shows like what's going on in an official server with a unlocked XP and everything. Like you can fully progress on this. This is the Squid G mode, and people are just getting insane amount of kills. And imagine dying 100 times, man. I'd lose my mind. I couldn't do that. Like this is
How long do
just
those games last?
I
What's the
don't
ticket count?
know, man. It's
Well, that looks like
crazy.
the timer at the top says 30 minutes. So I don't know if that's 30 minutes remaining or 30 minutes into the round, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's plus 200 kills. This
Screw
guy,
boosting servers. Play this.
Yeah.
this guy revived like 349 people. Like, People love this shit.
You know,
People love it.
This kind
a
of
lot.
game mode, though, it goes all the way back to the start of Battlefield. I mean, you had 16 player size maps in BF2 where people were like, let's throw 64 players in there just to see how it plays. I'm not necessarily against that side of the community because, hey, it's wild and Battlefield's a sandbox and you can do that. But it shouldn't be an official playlist, and the whole map size of 128 being a issue, you know, in this game, I don't care. You know, this game says 128, make it a thing in Portal, do what you want, I don't care. As long as the next game it doesn't have 128 and goes back to 64 and more balanced maps, fine. Because, like Catalyst said, the Exodus Conquest playlist was, like, far and away the best playlist ever, like, they've ever had in the game. And I wouldn't mind maybe, you know, around the time Season 4 ends, where they finally get to remastering all the 128 Conquest size maps, that I'll feel comfortable actually selecting that game mode, that playlist again, and actually being like, hey, maybe these maps feel better now. But until that day, I want 64 player size maps. The new map which we should actually talk about quite a bit here, because it is an interesting it's an interesting thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have a really hard time classifying it because there are really good elements to this map, and then there are really bad elements to the map. But I think the bad elements primarily revolve around the fact that it's 128 size. Like 60, I feel like if you took that map and put it on 64, it'd be better, but it would also be worse because I feel like the map square footage almost kind of prevents you from having decent rapid interactions, whereas the 128, it's just too much. It's just all over the place.
So there's no middle ground.
Not on this one.
Theoretically speaking, like, if you placed this map in a 64 player container, if you place this map in a 64 player sandbox, this would probably be a fan favorite map for this game.
Yeah,
I would say.
I completely agree.
This gets a lot of, as I said, Operation Metro, Operation Underground, Operation Locker. This would be the meat of Fort DeVoe. This would be the meat grinder map for this game, and I think it would be received a lot better. But, you know, as is a problem with a lot of these maps, 64 players does not play well on 128 player sized maps. And even though this is this technically the smallest map in the game at this point, Gravity, square footage wise, it has to be, right?
For 128, absolutely, yeah.
Even though it's the smallest, square footage in terms of map, it still feels like it's way too damn big.
Yeah,
but
it has really good elements to it too. I mean, you got the two main base spawns. You can't prevent It prevents space camping. You can go either route. There's a lot of verticality with the ship, although there's not a lot of cover on the sides, which brings us back to that discarded issue of, hey, I've got to run back to this point, but I'm going to get shot out in the open problem. The vehicle numbers on it are pretty solid. There's no crazy amount of tanks or crazy amount of helicopters. Again, it really just comes down to the fact that when you're in that container, or when you start throwing 40 people on a flag, you've just got a ton of grenade spam and concussive shells and just LMG spam. It's just all over the place. And I think that makes it overbearing at times. Not constantly, but at times.
Yeah, and that's why, like, when I was kind of analyzing how I felt around the map, I felt like the map had a really weird flow to it. Like, I couldn't quite understand what I was picking up on, but this map, more than other maps in the game, I was like, wait a minute, that guy was actually where I thought he was going to be. Like, I was being able to read the map. So sometimes it feels like a traditional Battlefield map where it's like, okay, this actually feels like it has some flow to it. And then other times it's literally like a fucking tsunami just comes, like, of 64 players come slamming into the B flag, and you're kind of just like, well, now that's the Battlefield 2042 that I recognize, complete Zerg rush, brainless, aping from flag to flag, and you kind of, if you're not in the right place, you just kind of get steamrolled. You're at the mercy of the type of players that are playing that round.
And on the flip side, the breakthrough version of the map is very interesting, because the original topic of the discussion was shrinking these things back down in breakthrough out of 128 to 64. And this version is almost too small for 64, the way that the layout is. It's
interesting.
If you look at classic breakthrough maps, normally they split the direction into almost two kind of flag areas. This just says, "Hey, throw everyone at the hill at the first point. Maybe that team holds it permanently, maybe they don't." And then you start getting funneled into the shipping containers, which is it's barely enough room maybe for that many amount of people. So I don't feel like maybe that map is the perfect breakthrough map, but it's better than the rest of them, I think. So it's all sorts of, it's a weird layout either way.
It's weird because you feel like you should praise it for being probably the second best map in the game,
Right.
but it's still just like not there. It's not all there.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because it feels like, you know, the devs talk all the time about like, this is what we expect ourselves as map makers, and we're hearing your feedback, and we're diverting our style of map design towards more of these maps. And it's like, okay, well, you're getting there. Like, this feels more like a Battlefield map than any other map in the game, barring exposure and barring some of the portal maps. But it's just, for whatever reason, they cannot nip it in the bud. They cannot nail it. It's always all over the place. It's either too big, it's either too small, it's either too small for breakthrough, and then too big for conquest. There is just something about some kind of design decision that they are making that is just making it impossible for them to completely nail it. Just one map, anyways.
What I was trying to say is the main issue, and I'm very surprised by this. You can't play 64-player conquest on this map right now.
Not right now, yeah. That is really
It's
weird
not even
considering they
featured.
said it's the same. It's the exact same map too. So we can't even test it to see if it's gonna be like, you know, as crazy as we think it is, or slow. We can't have any data on that at all.
Yeah, and there's people that want 128 players back for breakthrough. Imagine,
Yeah, those
128 player. It's Squid Chaos. That's what that is right there. That first point.
Can you create the 64 version in Portal?
Of Stranded,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Pretty sure you can. Yeah, no, I actually I know for a fact you can, because when I was doing some testing for my Crawford video today, I was in a 64 player lobby.
Okay. There's just no
For
official
conquest,
playlist,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, for Conquest.
Okay. Yeah. I know you can't do
You go
breakthrough.
to Portal, and I think they actually call it Total Conquest in the official experiences. I don't know why they call it Total Conquest, but you know, whatever sounds cooler, I suppose.
Okay, I think we should move on from this topic. 120 players just caused a lot of issues. It's causing a lot of issues now. I wonder if they'll ever keep it. I think that we could save that for discussion later as time progresses. But we'll leave it at that, okay? Okay, the next topic here for discussion is the class system that is being introduced sometime in Season 3. They said not at the launch of Season 3, so it could be at the end of it for all we know. But what they're going to do is basically introduce the classic Battlefield class system after major feedback from the community that they wanted this. I just want to have a deep dive discussion on whether this is a good idea now that we don't have regular soldiers. Now we have a little bonus to each regular soldier, and they're called specialists. This will be a first attempt to have a specialist with its own trait and gadget being put into a class. For example, McKay, Dozer, and Sundance will be in the assault class, and they will have the med pen as a unique item, right? That only they can use. And then the others will have like the repair tool and the spawn beacon, etc. Right? Everybody will have their own stuff. The one of the big things is there's a big debate going on if this is even a good idea. So I wanted to start off with you guys. Maybe we'll start off with Catalyst. Do you think that this is going to fundamentally change how people play this game?
No, not at all. Not at all. I, I okay. So let me backtrack and say, when specialists were first announced and there was initially pushback on specialists, this was kind of the solution that I suggested, kind of a merge
Right.
and a best of both worlds. But having played the game for 10 months now, I don't think that this change is really going to do anything, and I don't want to say that it's a pointless change. I think this is a almost a relenting change to say, okay, we're gonna do something about specialists. We hear you. Okay, like calm down, everybody. But when it comes to like actual gameplay,
Brutal.
the specialists are going to have their abilities. It's not like the abilities are getting taken away. It's really just the gadgets and the throwables, if I understand correctly, that are
Right.
going to be changed. And at that point, the only thing that this class system change is bringing is readability. So the one of the big problems with specialist is that, especially from a vehicle player standpoint, it's like, okay, there is a Falk player. Does that Falk player have a spawn beacon? Does that Falk player have a grenade launcher? Does that Falk player have smoke grenades, frag grenade? See, nobody knows. And while I will agree that readability in Battlefield is extremely important because of how much is going around you at all times, how much is readability worth in this game where this game is already nearly completely unreadable already? It's like, how much is this really going to solve some of the biggest gameplay problems in the game right now? And at this point in the game, now maybe if this change happened like 2 or 3 months into the game, it'd be a little bit of a different story. But, when you get into the topic of player tendencies and player habits, and they know what works and they know what doesn't, especially when it comes to specialist abilities themselves, McKay is still going to have his grapple hook, which is going to mean that he can get into places that he wouldn't normally be. So that means rattier players. That means vertical advantage at a moment's notice. It's like some of those same gameplay balancing issues that the game will have is still going to be there because they're not taking away the abilities. They're just changing the ability as to what gadget you can use. So I don't think it's going to make any difference at all. I think this is a copium thing for the developers to say, like, okay, guys, we hear you about the specialist here. Take this, shut up. Some people are going to be happy with it, and they're going to be like, okay, finally, yes, class system. But realistically speaking, and I'm interested to hear Gravity's opinion on this, I think it ain't going to do shit. I think it's another instance in which DICE are funneling resources to fix something that probably at this point shouldn't be fixed, and they should be focusing on something else. It's too late.
What do you think, Grab?
Absolutely. I don't think I could have said it better myself. It is 100% something that is too late. It is purely a response back to the outrage of the specialists. Obviously, they were never going to remove the specialists, so they're like, well, what can we do to kind of satiate this complaint about it? Well, putting your money into putting them into classes, it really doesn't do anything except, just reduces the ability for people to use certain equipment. That's literally all it does. And now, sure, I'll find if I see a Liz, a Boris, or an Irish, I'll go, well, at least one of those three might have a rocket launcher, but other than that, the rest of them won't. It's just, I don't see this changing how the game is played. I don't see people choosing the specialist based off of what what equipment they want. They want to play the specialist based off of the specialist ability, and I don't think that's gonna change too much. And if anything, it might even affect the way vehicles are how effective vehicles are, because now you might have people that be like, well, if I really want to play Angel, but I can't equip the Stinger, oh well, I guess I won't deal with that helicopter that's wrecking our team.
Interesting.
So it's just, this is something that's just going to be, it has unforeseen consequences because it's going to be shoehorned into the game this late. It's untested, in a mass player base. I have no idea how fully it will work, but I can't imagine that it will be, one, effective, and two, I can imagine it'll be crazy buggy once it comes out.
And the other thing is that why are they doing this halfway? I mean, the other part of it is you can still use whatever weapon you want whenever you want to. That's the other part of the class system that I think people are missing, and they're kind of just leaving that out. And I would think that if you're going to make the specialist into a more traditional class system, you would lock weapons to certain class types. I think they're probably not doing that because there's no weapons in this game.
That's the point.
Rhetorically speaking, like
that's it.
Figuratively speaking, but it feels like a half-baked change and a rush change and a late change all at the same time. I don't think it's going to help anything. It's kind of just a mess. I would much rather have them work on new content that works. No bugged headshot multiplier bullshit. I would rather have them work on more content for season 3, because me as a content creator, as a player, right now my gameplay in Battlefield is extremely lopsided. I play a lot like the first 2 weeks, and then once I'm done, I turn off the game until the next season comes out, because there's nothing to unlock, there's nothing to play for. And I think overall at this point, I think more people would be happy with the game, if they fixed mouse input for one, but also just had more content in general.
Yeah, that's those are the biggest things.
Or
I hear
persistent
this
servers.
nonstop.
If I had the choice between a class system and persistent servers, I'm picking persistent servers all day long.
For Portal, you mean?
Server browser.
For a server browser. No, even just for all-out warfare. So I don't get kicked to the menu every time. It just takes me to the next map, so I don't have to play Manifest 24/7. It's the biggest. That's all I want.
Wait, isn't that possible right now? Couldn't they do that?
In Portal, sure, but according to
whoever
the dev...
All-Out War.
Well, in Portal you can, but in All-Out Warfare they say they can't and they don't want to develop it. So
how do you switch the sides? Isn't that persistent?
You would think.
It is. It doesn't back you out, does it?
Well, you know what? This is that developer video that was sent out that literally said that they they have no interest in working on persistent servers. That got massacred by the community because of this kind of weird pretzel turning argument that they made about how it's not in the game, we don't have the technology, but clearly it exists already and they just don't want to implement it.
Well, I don't want to get mixed up with persistent servers or persistent lobbies. I'm talking about just the lobbies that we're experiencing right now, that big problem that we just talked about.
Persistent servers, but we're talking about...
Aren't they the same?
Yeah. So, well, the way that we're talking about this, we're talking about a server that doesn't kick you out of the server at the end of the round and then put you back into it. So the server is not going to turn off. It's just going to go to the next map or play the same map, however it does, but it's going to kick you out and possibly put you in another one. Whereas in the Portal mode, what it does is it just loads the next map. It stays on. That server you are in that lobby. And if you are considering that a lobby, I think we're in apples and oranges territory, because that's really kind of the same thing. The persistence, I guess, of this, maybe the confusion of it is maybe people are thinking, oh, it's persistent, so it has to stay on 24/7, unlike the Portal community servers where once it goes down below a certain number, it's over. So I guess, yeah, those are two totally different things, but...
Okay, we're probably getting a little off topic there, but let's just go back to the class system here. I'm actually kind of surprised by what you guys has stated. I thought... well, let's just go back to bare basics here. Why did this happen? Why did they decide to go for specialists? I think it's quite obvious why they went for specialists, because they can make more money off of them, right? And it gives it more, some characters or things to like strive for, and you can build up your favorite character, right? Instead of a favorite unknown soldier. There's more of a story you can tell too. That's probably what they went for. They probably scrapped that as well. But
well, I mean, they could have gone for that, but they did such a horrendous job of character development that it almost didn't matter.
Yeah, that's why I said like they scrapped that. So or
every
maybe they
single
never
character's personality trait is annoying. That's it. Annoying. That's every single character's personality trait. But go on.
Yeah, I mean, and then they ended up disabling all the lines. But anyway, I'm getting off topic here. The other reason why they stated as to why we got to this specialist system is because they wanted to give players loadout freedom. They specifically said this multiple times, even with their GameSpot live stream that they did. They discuss why everyone has access to all the primary weapons instead of before. So they went off of data, and they convinced themselves that people only chose specific classes based on the primary weapons. And we're like, okay, to fix that, we're just having primary weapon, like, complete freedom. You can pick whatever primary weapon you want, any sidearm you want, and you can pick any throwable, any equipment you want, right? This essentially got rid of the class system. That's where we are right now. So now they're backpedaling and keeping the whole primary weapon freedom because of that data, right? That do you guys agree with that data that people picked sniper class just because of the bolt action rifles?
Well, I think I feel like sniper is a bad idea to choose because I think that people are going to snipe are just going to snipe. You know,
Right.
I don't know if that's the example, but if you want to talk about medic class,
Engineer. How
assault
about
class,
engineer?
and
Engineer is a much
engineer,
better example because I mean, I think
yeah,
I was just playing a bunch of BF4 today. If you play on most of the BF4 maps that are not infantry centric, 90% of players on either team are going to be playing engineer specifically for a rocket launcher. If that is the case for their argument that, hey, people are playing the engineer because we need rocket launchers, then sure, everybody's going to play engineer because it's common sense that you want to take out a boat or a jet or a chopper or whatever. It's the bottom line is the class system being reintroduced now is purely it's trying to put out a fire that enraged the community, because the specialist system in itself only exists because the Battlefield 2042 game was originally meant to be a battle royale, and that's what the characters were meant to be. And at the last second, they turned it into a classic Battlefield game and didn't have anything or any time ready to put up a classic Battlefield system. So they threw all the assets that were going to be in that battle royale game into this single ability specialist problem, and that's how we got specialists. The fact that they're
wonder
even
what
bothering
stopped
going
them.
back
What stopped them
from
from
what?
making the BR?
Probably the
If
fact that
that's even
Apex
true.
became successful.
hopefully common sense.
Yeah, they were literally going to compete. They were literally going to compete against their own successful IP in Apex. EA was so
Apex, and it's the same style of BR2. It's a ability shooter. It's an ability. An ability BR. Apex would have wiped the floor with Battlefield. It still wipes the floor with Battlefield.
Yeah. And perhaps the other success of COD Warzone, they were like, well, we really can't compete with that, and we're going to have a really terrible draw on the market of this if we just release nothing but a Battlefield Battle Royale game. And we can't support Battlefield 5 anymore, so what do? We'll just about face, and that was the internal decision, and that's based on Tom Henderson's video.
Probably the knowledge that Modern Warfare 2 was also going to have Warzone 2. So at the most, you'd have a year of players, if it was good, before players returned to Warzone. And so basically, your game would be killed by a year into the life cycle.
But I think you guys made an interesting point where people would be like, "Oh, I want to go play my favorite specialist, right? I don't know, a Falk or something, Maria." And, oh no, I can't use the spawn beacon, which is my favorite thing. But I'm still going to play with Maria because I like her gadgets and her, her special gadget and her trait, right? To revive people. Well, that's my thing. I like to do that. I think you guys are right. I really didn't think about it that way, that people are just going to forget it. Like, oh, so what? Like, I can't use the rocket now. Okay, whatever. Like, maybe in the back of their mind, they're like, okay, I'll try something else. I'll try one of these other specialists I've never played with just because of the rocket. I don't think people are going to do that.
So
I think you guys might be right.
So here's another problem, though. Here's another problem, though, is that with organizing certain gadgets to certain specialists, it's kind of the stronger get more strong and then the weaker get weaker, because are you recognizing that McKay is getting the med pan and the armor plate? And then, let's say a specialist like Boris, who probably needs to run some type of health regeneration, is not going to be able to get that. So Boris just got dumped on even further down into the meta. Just for example. So
yeah, but he has the rocket launcher, though.
Yeah, this is
okay.
The javelin.
Okay, so I mean,
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think people are just going to quickly realize that. So what? I'm just going to play I'm going to pick the specialist.
As much
not anything else.
A final thought on this too. As much as people want to claim that Battlefield is all about team play, most players are always going to do what is best for themselves. So that is going to lead to more people playing specialists like McKay, where it's all health related items and armor plate because personal stats and achievements.
And just one more point on that. I mean, just even if you even making the assumption that McKay wasn't getting that super buff with the med pen and the armor plates, he used to get a rocket launcher, right? Because anybody could. Yeah. I love the M5 recoilless rocket launcher. That's my main gadget that I always use. Am I going to play an engineer class because I have a rocket launcher, because I want a rocket launcher? No, I'm still going to play McKay, not because of the buffs, but because he's still already overpowered with the movement bonuses and the verticality with the grappling hook. People are still going to play the specialist with the ability that they like more based off of than the equipment.
This is bad. This is bad because no one's going to play. I mean, you guys are going to complain, right? Because there's tanks everywhere. No one's dealing with them, right?
So here's the thing.
You're not going to complain about that?
No.
Like, hey, where's all the engineers at? What the fuck?
No.
You know?
I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Well, what they need to do in that case is they need to better balance vehicle versus vehicle combat, because it has been in this game and it still is very shitty.
True.
Especially land vehicles, especially tanks. I was overjoyed. I leapt for joy when they said that they were going to consider adding APS to tanks, because god damn, that needed to be a month 2 change. Tanks have been so weak in this game forever. Now, see, and more along the lines is like, the biggest thing is going to be health, right? And I think that when it comes to the type of players that are going to be affected the most to the least, you're not really going to have to worry about people not playing Falk anymore. Falk is still going to be in the meta because she has instant healing, and there's definitely more medics than anything else. Vehicles, you might have to worry about a little bit, but if they rebalance vehicle versus vehicle gameplay, it's not going to be as bad. And I think there's still probably people that are going to dedicate. They're going to be the same people. The same crazy people that sat on the AA in the back of the map in Battlefield 5 through the entire game just to take down a stealth bomber, you know?
Yep, so Battlefield always going to have those people, always.
Yep. But in majority speaking, I think everything's going to be fine. I would still like to see them balance vehicle gameplay, though.
Yeah, I still think there's going to be a lot of C5, and I mean,
You still got the C5.
Yeah, the Assault still got C5. I think there really isn't going to be that much of a change when it comes to that. Like I said, I think the biggest thing is people are still going to pick the class, the specialist they want for the ability more than anything else. Maybe we should even have a little bit of a discussion about that new vehicle and with that APS, because that was an interesting little thing too.
Have you guys? I haven't tried it yet.
We've T1'd it. It's okay. So
tell us, Gravity. Tell us.
So there is that. I forgot what it's called. The EC something or all RAM, whatever.
The ERAM, the ECRAM,
the ECRAM. Okay, people are split. I see people in chats all the time saying this thing is completely useless, it's pointless, it's weak, or whatever, and the other people say this thing's freaking overpowered. Well, sitting with a squad of 4 in this thing, because it is ridiculously broken when it has 4 people in it working together, but it's not unkillable, right? It takes 3 rocket shots to kill, and it drives like one of the Humvees. So it does. So what I'm saying is it drives crazy, right? It flips like crazy. You can't really go fast. But the APS does block tank shells when you have that equipped. It blocks rocket shots. It blocks grenades or anything like this, and that's fine. But the damage is really it can't sustain a lot of damage. The crazy thing about it is all 4 seats on it have really strong weapons. And what I mean by that is the main person gets the 40 millimeter cannon, so you get that like you would get on the Wildcat, or you can have the howitzer cannon, which practically one-shots infantry in a general area, or you get the 6 rocket pods that you could shoot out. The rocket pods aren't necessarily overpowered. So far, it looks like the howitzer is probably the best. Secondary seat gets an HMG or a minigun. The third seat is the weird one, because you get it's not an either or. You get both the an anti-air rocket and a laser-guided missile that the gunner can just switch between. So so I don't know if this thing is supposed to be.
I didn't know what that did.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's bugged and it's meant to be either or, like every other vehicle in existence, where you would say hey, I want our vehicle to be able to shoot against air or ground, it has both. So you can switch between, say, hey, we're going to light up a chopper and chase it around, or we're going to beat the hell out of this tank or wildcat, because we can do that. We can face tank it now because we have APS and they don't. And then there's the fourth seat. The fourth seat gets a 40mm rocket pod, or the flak pod, or the canister pod. So you can just blow infantry away if it gets too close. It's dumbfounding how strong this vehicle is in teamwork, but it is really a glass cannon because it can't sustain too much. C4, C5 annihilates it, landmines annihilate it, tank shells that do connect disable it, and you're in trouble. The other thing is the APS does take up the spot of thermal smoke and your repair system, so you have to choose what you want. And last but not least, I would say the only other weird thing about it is it does have the ability to have the team-wide spawn beacon. So if you are moving somewhere on a flag that
forgot about that.
If you're
just in case,
but it's temporary. It only lasts a minute or so. But I can just see this thing being completely wildly broken, because even just on Stranded, if your team has to walk 30 seconds to a minute to get to a flag, well, you'll just drive this Jeep up and put it in a safe spot, and suddenly your whole team can be on an enemy flag in an instant. And it's ridiculous to reinforce you. And I'm still not sure about this.
Down. It's interesting that it's a parachute one. Have you put it indoors?
Yes.
Does it parachute still?
No. I've seen people spawn right on it. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. I have not done that yet. It's always been outside.
Yeah, so the vehicle, it's just crazy overpowered, but it is a glass cannon in that sense. But you
gotta be smart.
You gotta be smart with it. So I don't think it's broken.
And Catalyst made a video on the new specialist, which we'll cover just here for a second. You also have to be pretty smart to use that, cover certain angles. And yeah, I think that was a great video. You guys should definitely go watch Catalyst's video on that. I learned a lot just from that, just from thinking about how, especially in Breakthrough, how players flank certain objects and where you can have cover easily and just predict where people are spawning from should be enough to where you should put your Vulcan at. Do you want to add to that?
I was so surprised. I was genuinely surprised as to how this specialist worked, because I think when everybody saw the trailer, they were like, "Oh, great! If attacking or defending wasn't hard enough, or like whatever you're trying to do isn't hard enough, now we have to put up with 4 or 5 miniguns shooting at us at the same time." But to Dynax's credit, I think that they balanced the specialist very well in terms of how operable his minigun actually is. It's pretty easy to destroy. You can get killed out from under it. So you really need to be, to the point of the video, you really need to be smart about where you're placing it. And I really, really appreciated that, because a lot of the specialists in this game are very push E to win, or press E to set it and forget it and do whatever. To the fact that DICE made a specialist that actually kind of matters where you put your minigun. I was very surprised, and I was very happy with that. And for that reason, I think that I could foresee myself playing Crawford quite a bit in the near future when I'm really tired of playing McKay, because right now there's no reason to play anybody else but McKay. I was very surprised, and I think this is if only all the specialists were like this, and two, I have some opinions on why some specialists are balanced the way they are. You can only do so many type of abilities in a Battlefield game, but this I consider this specialist to be an anomaly in that sense, and I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see where they go next. I'm kind of the specialist guy now.
That could be for a whole new discussion.
That's kind of my developed quota, or my developed namesake. Yeah. But I was very pleased with it.
Good.
Yeah. And that it's a good specialist when everybody thinks he's kind of useless, but you yourself can still get 7 or 8 man kill feeds. And I know maybe I may be a bit of an anomaly of a player, but You can learn with this specialist. I can't believe I'm saying that about, you know, a 2042 specialist. You can learn with this specialist, and that's the same thing that kind of attracted me to Sundance in the beginning too. It's that her flight mechanics were, you know, pretty unique and difficult to get a hold of, and you can do certain jumps here and there, but whatever. They butchered her flight mechanics. Moving on.
I think honestly that you just kind of hit the nail on the head as well. That is how I would like all specialists to be released. That is how specialists should be designed. They should be designed underpowered, underwhelming. Buff them if they need to. Don't bring them in completely broken where they need to be changed overnight. Have some testing. They should be underwhelming to the point where, hey, our ability is really only unique use. Like, they should be very, very specialized in the sense that, hey, we can still have this ability, we can still rack up kills if you're in the right spot at the right time, but not be completely broken. And I'm just going to say right now that they should just be all underwhelming. That's how they should be designed in principle.
Like lists, right? Like lists.
Complete
same
contrast.
Kind of deal,
complete
right?
contrast between this and Liz and Crawford on release. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also curious about, like, if they're adding 2 more specialists, and they have a class system now, you're going to have 2 other classes that are going to be missing 2 more specialists that are going to be it's going to be a little bit underwhelming, don't you think?
Oh well.
I mean, oh well.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I was also thinking about, well, will they continue? Is this a clue to continue after season 4?
Oh, probably not. Let's be honest.
I found an Easter
Probably
egg.
not.
No, yeah, I agree. But anyway, great discussion, guys. I think we should leave it at that. We went over a lot of good stuff here. Thank you again to Catalyst for coming on by. Appreciate it. I mean, hey, welcome back to the Refresh Battlefield show, Catalyst. It was really good to have you on once. Yeah, you bet. And Gravity, thank you so much for being my wonderful co-host here on the Battlefield show. And yeah, I think that'll wrap it up there. Well, that's a wrap to the brand new Refresh Battlefield show. I just want to thank you and my glorious co-host Gravity for joining us today. We'll have weekly episodes coming up. We'll try our best to get those out to you as the new season start dropping with all this new content, with the new classes. Let's see if this live service really picks up. So again, comment down below, like, share, subscribe, do what you need to do. And thank you for watching the Battlefield show. We'll see you next time.